Hello and welcome to SPORcast, a Canadian podcast discussing patient-oriented research. Research done in partnership with patients. I'm Beverley Pomeroy.
And I'm Lisa Ridgway, and we are patient partners who sit on a variety of patient councils and advisory groups, all with the vision to encourage research to answer research questions that matter to patients and aim to improve healthcare.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you will be inspired to get involved and create your own impact in order to support healthcare research be more relevant and meaningful. Please enjoy the show.
In a new home and brought to you from home.
Well,
SPORcast
Lisa, here we
is
are
back.
in another one of our new SPORcasts that is part of our COVID series here in partnership with the BC support unit. So thank you, Lisa, I think we're just, doing such a kick-ass job with all these guests we have these days.
Well, I'm mighty impressed by the two guests that we have today. But before we introduce them, I'd just like to acknowledge and share the privilege that many of us have because we're located and calling in from within the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of Indigenous peoples across BC. And BC is home to almost 200 distinct nations and Métis chartered communities, each with their own unique traditions and histories. So thank you for that privilege. And welcome to our two patient partner guests. Bev, it's 4 patient partners on SPORcast.
What a novel concept. I don't think we've ever done that. So, this goes out to Kent, our technical producer. I am so excited that we have 4 of us here today,
Awesome.
on our show as part of our COVID series. And of course, this culminates in our SPORcast patient-oriented research COVID-19 town hall, which we will have live on July 9th. So we invite everybody to come and listen to that. So we get to do introductions, and I'm super thrilled and privileged to introduce one of our guests, Sarah Fletcher. Sarah and I met, I think, when I first started with the BC support unit, and she was on our provincial council. But Sarah is a medical student at UBC. She previously studied health sciences at the University of Calgary, has been involved in patient-oriented research in the past 6 years, in particular starting out as an advisor with KidsCan, which is a research initiative at BC Children's Hospital and on the International Children's Advisory Network. I mean, Sarah, you've co-led a variety of pediatric medical research studies around the world. You're so experienced in the world of patient-oriented research. So I'm super excited to welcome Sarah. And I think, Lisa, you're going to give a brief intro of our other guest.
Yes, Megan O'Reilly, you're a nursing student at the Vancouver Island University, and you've obviously already completed your first degree in rural pre-medicine at Selkirk College. You call yourself a rookie, but you've collaborated on research projects aimed at bettering healthcare in rural communities. You're on the BC Support Unit Provincial Patient Council. You're a member of the Oversight and Advisory Committee that guides and supports Patient Voices Network. And when you're not advocating for POR, you've told us you play golf and you have 2 dogs, so you're busy. Well, thank you both for joining us. Bev, let's go into the questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just extraordinary to have you both here. So I guess my first question for both of you, and maybe Sarah, you can start us off, is, I mean, you've been involved in patient-oriented research for quite some time. So what attracted you to patient-oriented research in the first place?
Yeah, so when I first got involved in patient-oriented research, I was in high school and I was looking for an opportunity to volunteer and give back to my community. I actually had a classmate who was involved with the KidsCan initiative at the BC Children's Hospital, and it sounded like something I would be interested in, just in terms of I cared about healthcare from personal experience as well as learning, and I got involved and sort of didn't really look back. I really liked being involved in patient-oriented research because I felt you really saw the tangible outcomes of what you were doing, whereas some other volunteer work I'd done, it wasn't always possible to see those outcomes quite as quickly. And I think there's a big potential to have a significant positive impact on the healthcare system through informing patient-oriented research.
Wow, that's impressive. Thanks for that, Sarah. And what about you, Megan? What attracted you to patient-oriented research?
My story is a little bit like Sarah's, actually. As a healthcare student, you're always looking for volunteer opportunities. So I saw the opportunity to get involved in patient-oriented research, and I figured, hey, how bad could it be? I've done a lot of research for school. It can't be much different than that. It is a little bit different, but I fell in love with it and I'm hooked on it.
Hooked. I love that word. Well, you're both very high level students during the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about how the COVID-19 issues have changed your experience in your professional work, in your student lives? Sarah, do you want to try that one?
Yeah, for sure. So COVID-19 definitely introduced a lot of changes to the education I'm currently undertaking. So for medical school, basically everything stopped as soon as COVID started to ramp up, and they quickly moved the rest of my second year education online where it was possible. Where it wasn't possible, unfortunately, some things did have to be canceled or postponed. Since then, there's been a lot of uncertainty. I think that's one of the biggest parts, which I think most people in many fields would relate to, just in terms of how things are going to look when we go back and when we'll go back. So it's been a process of just waiting to hear about what the strategies will be for bringing us back to education. And we'll be delayed in starting my third year by about a month, and we're going to do 2 months of online learning before we start back in the hospital. So it's had an impact for sure, but I also think that, there are some positive benefits of it. We're probably going to be one of the first ever medical school graduating classes to have significant experience with telehealth strategies and the experience of the pandemic. So I think there's some opportunities as well as the challenges it's creating.
That's a great answer. You've hit it right on the head, the silver lining, the dark cloud. Megan, tell us about your experience as a student during COVID-19.
I also had classes canceled and moved online. Whatever couldn't be moved online was canceled, like clinical practices and lab practices. Moving forward, the next 4 months, I have all online classes and all my clinical work has been canceled until January of 2021. So there's a bit of uncertainty there, but they've tried to give us as much information as they know, and we're going to try and pick up again in January.
Wow, yeah, it's had a lot of impact. I mean, like all of us, right, with COVID-19 and education and the work that we're doing, in particular, with patient-oriented research. So just kind of curious, Megan, how are you involved in the COVID-19 response efforts? Have you been involved, short or long term? Just maybe talk about how you got engaged or what you've learned, or if you even were engaged in COVID-19 sort of poor efforts. Can you speak a little bit towards that?
Yeah, of course. I was engaged in a short-term way. I wasn't super engaged, I will say that. I worked with the SRAC, which was the Strategic Research Advisory Council on COVID-19 research, to give feedback as to what they could improve upon and what could be done better. And I'm also working with the BC Support Unit on ways we can engage patients in patient-oriented research for COVID-19. Both these opportunities came to me through the Patient Council, and from them I've learned that when everybody works together, we succeed so much more than we would in any other way, and that 2 heads are basically better than 1.
We definitely need to put that on a coffee cup, I think. So I definitely think it's one of our learnings, right, with COVID-19, is that relationships, and it seems to be a common theme in a lot of our conversations. And so Sarah, for yourself too, like, are you involved in COVID-19 response efforts, or what has your sort of experience been over the last couple of months?
Yeah, so similar to Megan, I've been involved in a little bit of the patient-oriented research response to COVID through the BC Support Unit. I'm also working on the same group as Megan, trying to figure out how to best engage patient partners during the time of COVID. I've also, through some other of my engagement work with the Canadian Medical Association, I was involved in creating a virtual care guide for patients and caregivers to sort of give people a step-by-step of what to expect when doing a virtual care appointment, expecting that many people will have never experienced that before, and it can definitely be a little bit daunting. Through school, I've also had the opportunity to give back to some of the physicians working on the front lines, providing some childcare, and I signed up to donate blood for the first time as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That is, I want to see the Excel spreadsheet that is your life. Every minute sounds full. So you've both been involved in research projects, and in some cases even been co-leading them. Can you both tell us about how those research projects have been impacted? Have they continued through COVID-19? Sarah, has this happened to you?
Yeah, so I didn't have actually really any active patient-oriented research projects that I was involved in going on. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I had one project I was working on that was fortunately already completed, and we were just in the stages of writing it up. So that was able to proceed relatively as planned. But something I did notice in terms of some of the engagements I've been involved in is a lot of stuff that was planned or was upcoming has totally been stopped. And I think that's led to a lot of frustration. I think that also on the other hand, there's now a new opportunity for different types of patient-oriented research, and I've certainly seen tons and tons of opportunities looking for patient partners related to COVID, but also related to other issues as well, like virtual care that's suddenly become such a hot button topic in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes, and Megan, have you been directly involved in research projects that have been sort of delayed or slowed down as a result?
I have. So some of the projects I was working on were supposed to meet in Vancouver in person, and all that was changed to virtual. And because of that, the collaboration wasn't quite as good as I think it normally was, because it was a lot harder to meet and get everybody together and organize it, because some people could use the phone and some people could use their computer. So I found it was really hard to do that. But overall, I'd say it hasn't been terrible. I think there's a lack of projects to become involved in. I haven't had a lot of opportunities to become more involved in research right now.
I guess it kind of lends to, you know, kind of going off script a bit, and because I mean, you touched on a little bit, Sarah, too, some of the stuff that you're involved in. What do you guys suggest on how to engage patients, you know, at this particular time, or how to engage them in research? I'm just kind of curious off the top of your head, like what are your thoughts and ideas around that, Sarah, especially because you've been involved in developing some of those processes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like any time, it's just as important now as ever to engage patients in research. And I think there's a whole host of ways to do it virtually, and that can be through like video or phone conference calls, but also looking at like online platforms or even just email as a way of communicating with patients. And I think something that's come out to me sort of through all of my COVID-related experiences is that communication is really important. And just being upfront about what you do know and what you don't know. And if something does have to be canceled or postponed, I think just explaining that and explaining why. And I think that goes a lot towards sort of helping with the uncertainty and anxiety that's come up from a lot of pretty much everything changing in our lives in response to COVID.
Yeah, what about you, Megan? Do you have any suggestions on how to do patient engagement and patient-oriented research kind of in the times of COVID? Like, have you learned or thought of anything over the last few months?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Sarah said about the being upfront part, because a lot of it is if you don't tell people that it's been delayed, they think that you've forgotten about them when really you haven't. So just being upfront about that communication and finding different ways to reach out to your patient partners, because not one method works for everyone. So being flexible with the ways that work for them.
Yeah, we've heard that an awful lot. I mean, one size doesn't fit all here. And aside from being over Zoomed, there's all sorts of other ways to reach out. So communication being the key. But can we talk just a little bit about, I don't know, a situation or something that's happened to you personally that reflects the impact of COVID-19 on your life? Would either of you be willing to share a vignette?
For example, for me, my semester was cut about a month and a half early. So that meant that I had to get out of my student housing and get home. But during that time, there was the essential travel warning, but I needed my family to come out to help me bring all my stuff back. And I lived 8 hours away, plus the ferry ride. So it was a lot of hassle of trying to organize how to get back. And then I also found that it was hard once I got home, because it was trying to get that online education going, and the summer job that I thought had planned wasn't panning out as good as I had originally thought. But overall, it's all worked out in the end now, and I'm glad that the school portion's over and that I'm just moving forward with the working part.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I had a similar experience to Megan. So it was almost like overnight. It went from, you know, all of the members of my family were out of the house at work or school during the day, to suddenly my dad and my brother both at home with me during the day. And then a few weeks later, my sister came back from Ontario as well. So it went from, having a great routine about studying in the libraries to suddenly everybody was at home all the time. The animals loved it. I think the people not quite so much. And it's led to a lot of changes coming up for the summer as well. But I think for me, it's not all bad. I'm getting a little bit of bonus vacation time that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And I'm actually going to get to spend a few weeks working at a summer camp that otherwise I wouldn't have gotten to do. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, definitely big changes and just a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen for the future.
So I guess we've talked to a lot of some of our guests during the COVID series and asked this question. And I think as patient partners, I don't know if I have my nirvana of what I want for patient-oriented research from my perspective as a patient partner, and I'm sure we all do. So I guess I'm kind of interested, Megan, with you in particular, do you have a long-term vision, with your work in or just in patient-oriented research? I know it's during COVID, but what is your long-term vision for patient partners or researchers? Have you considered that, during the last couple months?
I have. I think I've found that my vision includes patient-oriented research always being a thing, rather than it being an optional thing where some research groups use and some don't. It's something that everybody uses. And I envision that patient partners will feel super valuable out of it because everything they have to offer is valuable, but I'm not sure that that's always recognized. So everybody working together and being accountable for what they've done and knowing they're bringing something to the group.
Yeah, and Sarah, you've been doing it for a long time. I mean, you've got to have you've already been in it for a long time. So I'm curious, what's your vision?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Megan said. I think it highlights the importance of it always being a part of research and not just sort of an optional thing you can do if you have time. I think one of the benefits that might come out of it is I think the COVID pandemic has forced a lot of people to adapt how they do things. And I think it'll hopefully down the road lead to some more flexibility in how patient partners are engaged. I know for me, one of the big issues was often that, they would schedule meetings at a specific location during the middle of the day and I'd have school, so I wouldn't be able to attend. But I think we'll hopefully see a lot more flexibility in how to engage patient partners as a result of things moving virtually, and I'd love to see that stay in the future as well.
Oh, I think you have to make a POR promise to Bev and I, the two of you, that you will stay in POR. Now that you're hooked, will you stay? Will POR be the way that you go forward?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think.
Yes. Well, I guess that's coming up to the end of our interview. Any last thoughts, Megan, about what's going to happen to you in the next years of your nursing education?
Not really. I'm just excited, despite it all being different and not knowing what's going on. I'm excited for the career and the path and the education. So I'm trying to have a positive look on it, even though some things aren't as ideal as they would be.
And Sarah, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think similar to Megan, I'm really excited to see what will come in the future. I think it's a challenging situation right now, but I hope we as a society get the chance to learn and grow from it. And I was really happy to have the opportunity to be on SPORcast today.
It's so nice to be with a group of patient partners. It's something that I always love to have. So thank you so much for taking the time. And of course, this always culminates in our town hall, which I believe both of you are going to be participating in on July 9th. So we will have an amazing conversation with you and Sterling and Danielle and I think Genevieve and a few other people. So thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show. And we just really appreciate your time today.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
SPORcast is now zoomed to you, courtesy of hosts and creators Bev Pomeroy and Lisa Ridgway. With the able assistance of a small but mighty team of production partners at the BC Support Unit, powered by Communications Lead Justin Otteson, Project Manager Michelle Duffy, and me, SPORcast's technical producer and occasional announcer, I'm Kent Cadigan Lofsgaard.
If you'd like to get in touch with us and learn more, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SPOR_cast. That's SPOR, SPOR _cast, CAST, hashtag SPORcast. We can also be reached via email at sporcast1@gmail.com or visit our website, www.sporcast.ca.